and welcome to Filmmaker Friend, the brand new series where I'm going to go through all the basics to make a cohesive film, to help you make a cohesive film. These first couple episodes are all going to be about building up a good continuity within your scene. And this first episode is going to be about the 180-degree rule. What it is, why it's important, how to use it, and how to break it to put emphasis on a line or a moment in your scene. So, first of all, what is the 180-degree rule? The 180-degree rule is probably the first thing that you learn if you go to college or uni when studying film production or any other kind of visual-based media production. It references the angles in which you can place your cameras without confusing your audience. If that makes sense. Imagine you're filming a piece of dialogue between two actors. Now, mentally, draw a line on the floor between them. The aim when obeying the 180-degree rule is to maintain all cameras stay on the same side of that line. Pick a side and stick to it. Imagine you're not filming this scene on location. Imagine the scene isn't taking place on location. Imagine it's not in a kitchen or in a castle or in the middle of a jungle. Imagine it's taking place on stage in front of a live audience. Imagine you're filming a live performance. You ain't gonna want to film the audience, you're gonna want to film the action. Place the cameras where the audience would be sat, and that creates a consistent left and a consistent right within your scene. Because that's why this rule is so important. It creates consistency in your scene, it creates a consistent geography, so your audience doesn't get confused and doesn't make you go, wait, who stood where? I don't understand what's going on. It makes the viewing experience just that much easier to digest. In this scene that I took of Rach and Sean, Rach is on the left and Sean is on the right. Left and right? For me, this is my left. I'm just going with this as my left. When it comes to the edit, I might be shaking my hand here, but Rach might pop up here. Who knows? But you can tell that Rach is on the left and Sean is on the right by these two shots, by this one and by this one. Rach is on the left, and you can tell this because she's looking to the right, and Sean is looking left, which places him firmly on the right. They're both looking to the centre of the scene, to the geographical centre. You can tell this even better by if we place the two shots up next to each other. They're both facing inwards, they're both facing towards each other, and that's what this 180-degree rule does. It ensures that happens between your two shots. Now, if I took this shot of Rach facing that way, and I did the exact same shot of Sean, but I took it from the other side of him, from the other side of that imaginary line that we drew on the floor, he'd be facing the same way that Rach would be facing. And it would look like they're not looking at each other. But if we filmed them both from the same side of that imaginary line, let's call that the line of action. If we filmed both shots from the same side of the line of action, both will be facing each other, making it easier to visually digest the scene and making it nicer to watch. Don't get me wrong, if it's your aim to like confuse and throw off your audience, great, go for that. But chances are that's not what you're going to be going for in a standard basic scene. Some scenes, yeah, you need that change. We'll get to that later. This rule can be implemented in any scene, from a conversation to a fight scene, and it's there to create a status quo and maintain that status quo within the scene. However, and this is important, scenes aren't meant to be a part of a story. They're supposed to maintain their own story with a beginning, middle, and an end. Something needs to change, develop, or be introduced to make it interesting and to make it important to the overarching story that you're trying to tell. And this is where you can have some fun with the 180-degree rule. Now, don't get me wrong, if I just chopped and changed and jumped backwards and forwards across the line of action like it's a jumping rope, like it's a skipping rope, all that's going to do is going to confuse my audience, and it's going to make them not understand what's going on in the scene. Like I said before, if that's your aim, go for it. Great, brilliant. But in most options, in most scenes, you're not trying to confuse your audience. You're trying to maintain their attention. You're trying to keep them interested. And the more you confuse them, the less likely they're going to be interested in the story. The less likely they are to want to be a part of the story. If you want to change the angle from which you're filming at over that line of action, you need to find something to motivate that change. Whether that's a change in power dynamics, or a sudden realisation. Or in the scene that I've filmed between Rach and Sean, the change is a tonal shift. A shift from whether or not Sean ate the cookie or not, to whether their relationship is a healthy one.
I don't understand what you're so upset about.
You can't be serious.
No, I am. I came downstairs and suddenly you shouted at me.
You ate my cookie!
Excuse me?
You ate my cookie? I left it here on a plate so that I could have it when I got home from work.
It's just a cookie.
It's not just a cookie, it was the last cookie. Look, I'm tired and I'm hungry and I've had a really stressful day and I've not had a chance to eat anything.
Sorry, I didn't realise that you wanted it.
What?
I didn't realise.
How can you not? What did you think I was doing? Leaving it on a plate in the middle of the living room for what, decoration?
No.
Look, I even left a sign saying please don't touch. I know you're an idiot, Sean, but even you can't be that stupid.
There it is. At that point we jump from one side of the action line to the other side of the line of action, leaving the safety of this light-hearted argument about a cookie, and we enter the uncertainty of a potential breakup. Now, from the dialogue, it's not obvious. People throw around the terms idiots and stupid all the time, particularly when they're upset and particularly when they're annoyed. It happens all the time. It's not a nice thing to say, but it's not breakup worthy because we don't have the context of the previous story, so we need to visually show that. We need to visually show what Sean is feeling. When making a film, it's important to remember it's a visual medium. It's not like a book where you can tell the audience what your viewer is feeling through words, through writing down their mind track, by their thought track, by what they're thinking. You have to visually show that. And using stuff like the 180-degree rule helps tremendously with doing just that. Now, if I just jumped from one side of the line of action to the other side of the line of action as Rachel says that line or just after Rach says that line, it would work. However, it still would be a little bit jarring on the audience and there would still be that little moment of going, whoa, where are we? So we need to find ways to sew the scenes back together to make it nice and pleasant to watch. And there's two very easy ways to do that. The first one, and probably the easiest one, is to cut away from the action. To cut away to something that they are talking about or that is involved in the scene or involved in the line or the moment that causes and motivates your change in angle. The option that I'm using here is Rach says about the cookie, like says, look at it, you can't be that daft, or whatever she says, I can't quite remember the line, and I cut to the cookie. I cut to the cookie and I cut to the note of the cookie. And then when I cut back, there she is. She is on the other side of the line and she's still having that go, she's still in the middle of saying that line. We give that distance so the audience almost psychologically forgets which way round they were in the first place. When we come back, you don't really notice the change, but subconsciously you realise that something has changed. You realise that something is different. And that helps emphasise that change. The reason this is the easiest one to do is because it requires no need for the actors and very minimal crew. All it requires is good lighting, a camera, and someone to operate the camera, someone to press record. That's all you need, and obviously the stuff to film. And so you can do this while the actors are on a break, or if someone needs to nip to the loo really quick, you can just go, right, while they're out, we can really quickly set up this shot, take it, set everything back up to where it was supposed to be. The second way is to, instead of hide the cut, hide the change, is to physically show the crossing of the line of action. The reason that this might be a little bit more difficult than the first option is because you would need some form of camera gear to help steadily move your camera across. Whether that's on a slider or a gimbal or a Steadicam, something along those lines, to make sure your camera doesn't go like as you're moving across. You can do this with a low swooping shot, you can do this with a high swooping shot, you can just go straight across left to right or right to left depending on which way you're going. You can do it between them, you can do it behind one of them, you can do it behind the person who's talking, you can do it behind the person who's listening. You've got loads of options with it. And that will show the change. Instead of implying the change like the cut across does, it would physically show the change. This might not work for some, it might work better for some. It depends, and again, it depends on what you're doing in your scene. I've edited both of the scenes in two different ways. One with cutaway to the plate of cookies, and one with the physical showing of the change of angle. And I will link them both down in the description so you can decide which one works better for your particular scene and which one you think works for my scene. Put down in the comments if I can, oh no, I can do this, up there, or up there. Again, I'm still not sure which way round it's gonna go. I'll put a poll. Which one works better for my scene? Does the cutaway work, or does the showing of the angle change work? Which one works better? Let me know. The most important thing to remember about shooting a film with the 180-degree rule, whether it's a two-person scene or an ensemble scene, is the master shot. Most people start off a scene with a master shot and end a scene with a master shot. That's how most scenes start and finish. And there are plenty of reasons why you would want to use a master shot. You could use it to pull out from the tension of a scene. Like, say something is getting really intense and then suddenly the climax happens in the scene and then there's that lull. You can pull out to help show that lull. Or say it's an argument between two people and they start up right next to each other, and throughout the scene they drift further and further and further apart. You can show the master shot before and at the end of the scene to show that they started off really close to each other talking, and by the end of the scene they're really far apart, to visually show that distance in the characters. On top of that, particularly if you're filming a group scene, having a load of close-ups on a face and then a different face and then a different face right here in your face could get quite intense for the audience. So having that ability to cut back, whether you're doing it cutting back just between 3 people or 4 people or the full group, will allow you to get that breathing space between you and the characters, particularly if it's a really intense scene. You need that little bit of distance between your characters sometimes. Sometimes, not all the time. Remember, film is an art form, it's all subjective. What works for one scene won't work for another scene. What works for my style of filmmaking won't work for your style of filmmaking. When it comes to filmmaking, the 180-degree rules and all of these laws and rules of filmmaking aren't really laws. So play around with it. Go out and shoot a scene between 2 people. In the edit, jump and change and swap and skip. Play that blooming line of action like it's a skip and rope. Go nuts with it. See what works for you. See different ways to do it. Filmmaking, just like all other art forms, is a constantly changing medium, is a constantly evolving medium. And if you're one of the people who creates their own rule set, that's brilliant. I'm down for that. That's what we want to see as filmmakers. That's what all of us as film lovers, filmmakers want to see. We want to see changes. We want to see people develop film as a craft. You can jump onto the other side of the line of action every time someone says a key phrase to put emphasis on it. You can randomly just jump from side to side to side to side to show a mental instability in the main character or the lead character in that scene. Or just throw out the 180-degree rule in general, preferring chaos editing to show the mayhem of a war zone. These rules are there to act like guidelines to help you create film. And that's all they are. And all these videos are for is to educate you guys on what these rules are. Rules. So that's my time. This was the first episode of Filmmaker Friend. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next episode. See you later, guys. Bye!